Hi everyone. So the first thing we need to talk about tonight are Aristotle's rhetorical appeals. Rhetoric just refers to language, so these are three appeals you can make in speech or writing when you are trying to persuade someone. Our next assignment will be a 3-page persuasive paper. The rough draft won't be due for several weeks. It's on your syllabus. So we're just going to get our feet wet tonight and start thinking about topics and selecting sources. The three methods that Aristotle came up with for persuading people are pathos, logos, and ethos. Maybe you've studied them before in other speech or writing classes. Pathos, which sounds like sympathy or empathy, so it has that root P-A-T-H in there, refers to appealing to emotion. So when you want to persuade someone, one way to get them to agree with you is to make them feel something. People are motivated greatly by their emotions. So here's a TV commercial to try and get you not to drink and drive that relies heavily on emotions.
Come on, buddy.
You and me, we were made for love. A lifetime is not long enough to show you what you mean to me. Ooh, I'll be waiting here for you when you come home to me.
I'll see you later, buddy. Hey, I'm sorry. I decided I shouldn't drive home last night. I stayed at Dave's.
Ooh, when you come home
I'm back. I'm back.
to me.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, again, that commercial relies heavily on pathos or appealing to emotion. So you might take a moment to list all of the things in the commercial that play on your emotions. First and foremost is the fact that it tells a story. It's a brief commercial, but it has characters. There's a whole narrative there. There's a climax and resolution. You see what the man's life with the dog is like, and you get to imagine what life for the dog would be like without the man. Your emotions go up and then down and then up again at the end. The soundtrack plays to your emotions. The use of a dog plays to the emotion, and the attractive man. All of that plays on your emotions to try and persuade you not to drink and drive. This commercial is the exact opposite. Instead of drinking and driving, they're trying to persuade you not to text and drive. But this commercial appeals to reason, so it relies on logos. Logos sounds like logic. So this commercial has very little to no emotion, mainly relies on appealing to your sense of logic.
How often do you text and drive? No, really, think about it. You're driving down the road and your phone buzzes, beeps, or hollers. Do you take a peek? If you answer yes, you're risking your life and the lives of others. A recent AT&T survey asked 1,200 teens about texting and driving, and the results were quite scary. 61% of teenagers who answer questions say they look at their phone while driving. 43% of them say they actually text while driving, and they know it's not safe. Because in that exact same survey, almost all of the teens said texting and driving is dangerous. And when they're sitting at a red light, more teens think it's okay to mess with their phones. 73% glance at their messages, while 60% of them send one. But that could be just as dangerous because did you know thousands of crashes happen each year at intersections with traffic lights? And peer pressure could be to blame because 9 out of every 10 teens surveyed expect a reply within 5 minutes. And adults aren't helping, at least from the teenager's perspective, because 77% of teens said adults tell kids not to text and drive, yet do it themselves all the time. So what will make them stop? 89% of teenagers surveyed said a phone app that prevents texting and driving would be an effective way to get them and their friends to stop. So the next step, download AT&T Drive Mode, an app that helps curb the urge to text and drive. Then, take the pledge and share it with your friends. Texting and driving, it can wait. Hundreds of thousands of people have already signed on. Will you?
Okay, so that one, it's very clinical. The music is just a digital tune kind of selected from the computer that plays the same phrase over and over again. It's full of numbers. It's a survey was done, so it involves research. There aren't any actual pictures of human faces, so it's all, digitally created. And while the statistics might be horrifying, it may play on your emotions a little bit. There is some crossover between these appeals. You can see when you compare it to the previous commercial, or when you think of other texting and driving commercials that you've seen, where someone's in a car and you have a narrative and they're texting and you're about to, see their child, die because the parent is texting while driving. You can see that how this one really appeals mostly to a sense of reason. A good argument has all of these appeals. Even though people are motivated highly by their emotions, only relying on pathos can be manipulative. So then you run the risk of, using fear tactics, or just making an appeal to pity, getting people on your side because they pity you or feel excessive sadness. And that can be manipulative. You really need to have all three, and I would say more logic than emotion. But as you do choose topics for your persuasive research paper, you'll need to think about these things. What stories can I tell? What images can I show that will appeal to people's emotions? But how can I really pack in the facts and the statistics and the research to make sure that I have a good foundation of appealing to logic? The last of the rhetorical appeals is a little bit harder to understand, and that's ethos. And ethos actually has to do with establishing your own credibility as the writer. So think about the word ethics. If someone is ethical, then you're likely to listen to their argument. If someone is unethical or immoral, then you are not likely to listen to their argument. The commercial that I chose actually has a mix of all three, pathos, logos, and ethos. But I chose it as an example of establishing credibility because I think they selected the least likely person you would expect to make this argument. So this is an anti-abortion commercial. I'll let you watch it first, and then I'll explain my thinking and give you some more tactics for appealing to ethos.
Most of you won't recognize me or my real name. It's Norma McCourty. I'm also known as Jane Roe, the plaintiff in the Supreme Court case, Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion in America and changed our nation in an unprecedented way. Back in 1973, I was a very confused 21-year-old with one child and facing an unplanned pregnancy. At the time, I fought to obtain a legal abortion, but the truth be told, I have 3 daughters and have never had an abortion. However, upon knowing God, I realized that my case, which legalized abortion on demand, was the biggest mistake of my life. You see, abortion has eliminated 50 million innocent babies in the U.S. alone since 1973. Abortion scars an untold number of post-abortive mothers, fathers, and families too. You read about me in history books, but now I'm dedicated to spreading the truth about preserving the dignity of all human life, from natural conception to natural death.
Okay, so again, that had a mix of all three. There were images of infants that appeal to your emotion. There were statistics that appeal to your sense of reason. But my thinking with the credibility is that if someone has experienced something or nearly experienced something and then changed their mind, like if they've been in your shoes and then changed their mind, that can sometimes be very convincing. I mean, think about when you ask older, wiser relatives for advice, and they will often surprise you by telling you, well, I was in this situation once myself, and that gives them greater credibility because they've been in this situation. So that's why I chose this one. But what are ways that you can make yourself look credible in the workplace or in academic writing, in speech or in writing? One thing is to know your audience and speak to them in terms that they can understand. You don't want to use words that are too big when you're speaking to a group of elementary school students. They're not going to be persuaded or listen to you at all. You'll lack credibility with them. Those of you who maybe coach or work with younger students know this. So knowing your audience is a big one. Dressing for your audience is a way to make yourself look credible. Citing all of your sources and using gold standard sources is a way to make yourself look credible. Following a certain expected format, and for this paper, we'll follow an APA format, and that will make you look credible. Spelling correctly and following the conventions of English also makes you look credible. Just for fun, let's watch this commercial about Michael Phelps and think about whether you think it has a good mix of ethos, pathos, and logos as you watch it.
People say I'm pretty obsessed with speed. Come to think of it, I like to do everything fast. When I started training for Beijing, I wanted to learn Chinese, so I got Rosetta Stone. They say it's the fastest way to learn a language, guaranteed. Fast. I like that.
Rosetta Stone is not boring memorization. It's a patented system that lets you learn a language naturally, the way your brain is wired to learn. And Rosetta Stone uses speech recognition to coach you on the correct pronunciation, which will get you speaking quicker than ever. Call now for more information and get a free demo CD, because when it comes to learning a new language, speed is everything.
And go.
Rosetta Stone, the fastest way to learn a language, guaranteed. Call now.
I told you guys, under a minute.
Okay, so this commercial relies heavily on emotion. It uses a celebrity that appeals to people. It uses humor that also appeals to people. So in terms of being an effective commercial, that might be effective. But in terms of really truthfully persuading you that this language learning system is the best, they don't provide much appeal to reason. We don't really hear Michael Phelps use any speak in Chinese. So, it lacks that. And it also operates on an analogy of, well, he's fast, and this is a fast language learning system that's neat, but it's a weak analogy. It's not really logical. So in terms of marketing a product, it may be effective, but in terms of making an argument, in the workplace or in academia or in politics, this one doesn't have a good foundation of appealing to logic. So this is the end of part 1 of Ethos, Pathos, and Logos.